Ekam Nityam Vimalamachanam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. So this is a salutation, a namaskar to the Sadguru. So Sadguru is what? What is the meaning of this word Satguru? So the word is made out of two different words, Sat and Guru. Sat is truth. Actual, unchanging, eternal truth is called Sat, S-A-T, Sat. But when you put the word Guru with that combined, it becomes Sadguru. So Sat is actually not a word by itself. But in the Sanskrit language, when you combine the two together, it becomes Sadguru. And this entire verse is a description of the state of the true enlightened master, enlightened guru. As we say in our Angel Wing program, we want to move towards self-mastery. So actually, this is the thing that we're talking about. Although we're not using this particular phraseology perhaps, or this verse, we may in the future, but this is the state that is talked about. So the first word here is Brahmanandam. Now what does that mean? Brahma Anandam. The two words are there. The word Ananda or Anandam is different from the word Sukha. Sukh means there's a duality, Sukh and Dukh. In life, we have only this experience, usually. Sukh Dukh. Some things are painful, some things are enjoyable, some things are pleasurable, some things are not pleasurable. That is Sukh and Dukh with the five senses and with our experiences in life. The state of Ananda is beyond both of these. And this is a very critical thing to understand in spiritual evolution. That the state of Ananda is not within the polarity, the duality of the mind. And that duality is what this word means, dvanda. Dvandatitam. See? It's a very, very important point here. This word dvandatitam is a combination. Dvanda, atit. It's beyond. In Sanskrit language, the word beyond or transcendent is atit, like guna atit, beyond the three gunas. Deha atit, beyond beyond the body. So in this sense, dvanda atit, it's beyond the duality. And the duality is what is in our experience all the time. And that is where the Atma Tattva, is stuck within that duality somehow. That is the Maya. The pairs of opposites, as another way of putting it. And the Bhagavad Gita, entire Bhagavad Gita is inside this verse. Entire Bhagavatam is inside this verse. 18,000 verses are inside this verse. The Upanishads, the Vedas, the entire set of 18 Puranas and their essence is inside this verse. So, the state that is of Brahmanandam, wow, it's very powerful, very amazing, because it is a vastness. The word Brahman, this is a Sanskrit word, Brahman. It's a Brahman, Atman, like this, that's the root. So, Akshara is another word. So, whenever you see this word Brahma, now this word Brahma is different from the word Brahma. It's the Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. That is the God Brahma. That is the deity Brahma. That is also a form of the Brahman, but that's a different meaning, and that's a different thing actually. That's a actual being that is the Brahmaji. But when we say Akshara, meaning the absolute, or Brahma, or Brahman, or Akshara Brahman, these mean the same thing, but they're just, so what is this? What is the meaning? The word Akshara means imperishable. Shar means perishable, Akshar means imperishable. So chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita is Akshara Brahma Yoga. And the word Brahman means vast, vastness. Think for a moment when you see the ocean, when you go to the beach, any of the ocean, any east, west, east coast, west coast, anytime you've seen an ocean, there's that sense of vastness. So that which is without boundary and infinite is called Brahman. So the bliss of the infinite is what is talked about in this first word only. Now what does that mean? What is the bliss of the infinite? We can perhaps understand what infinite might be. That there is no end in space. Infinite galaxies are there. Infinite number of galaxies are there. Infinite amount of time is there. One might say there's the timeline or the number line. It goes to infinity. The highest number is infinity. So the idea of infinity is in our mind somehow. Somehow we have some idea about that. Okay, so we have an idea about that. So what? So how does that connect with Brahma Ananda? How does that connect with Anandam? What is the connection between infinity and Anandam? Well, look at it this way. As the mind is progressing further out of the duality, that's where the vastness begins to open up, the freedom is experienced, and the joy of that vast freedom is experienced. Now this is very, very experiential. So in the experience of our life, we can actually realize this. Very simple thing to try is to just go for a walk for an hour in a park, keeping attention on the breath and trying to absorb, trying to just experience the vastness of what is around us, the trees, the plants, the sky, the other people, the track we're on, all of that, just through the senses. And if we can even go for a walk in a park with total openness, we get a glimpse of Brahmanandam. That is what the rishis discovered. In the ancient India, there were no temples and all these things that we have now, or in any tradition like this. They were just rishis that were researching and meditating in nature. This is where the entire Sanatana Dharma actually originated. And this was a discovery. The Brahmanandam is a tremendous discovery about the fact that as our inner space becomes vast and as it becomes more and more integrated within, all the fragmentation, all the confusion, these things stop. There's a natural joy that is called Anand. By the way, Devi Jesus, me and you again, and then of course Bhagavan with us is such a blessing. What is interesting here is that the word Ananda, there's actually a neurotransmitter. It's a neurological transmitter that has been named from that word. It's called anandamide. So the researchers said that particular transmitter is used in creating joy and bliss and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's just an interesting sidebar there. So Ananda is a natural state where the mind is not chewing up internal energy due to the polarity of the mind. I hope that makes sense. It's a very, very critical point that the internal power that is flowing through us is torn apart, chewed apart, or it is concentrated and burned away by the duality. So Dvanda is what destroys the internal energy. And we are moving beyond that. So once the sadhana takes hold, sadhana is what we are doing, meaning it is a way of using our energy to connect with God. Ganesha, Bhagavan Shiv, Bhagavan Krishna, in Christianity it is with Jesus. However it is done, it is connecting with God in the higher consciousness. And as we begin the connection process, our energy begins to take off. And eventually, as time goes on, the polarity of the mind is broken through. And when the polarity of the mind is broken through, this extraordinary vastness naturally comes about. And in that vastness, we get glimpses of this along the path. Our mind becomes open, more and more open, so we start experiencing Anandam. So we don't need so many things from outside then. The bliss comes from inside. We know that the joy comes from inside. But to actually be in that, this first word is teaching us how to be in that particular state of in that vastness. That the boundaries fall away. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That feeling, oh, all family is one. What a beautiful, just an emotion, even at the emotional level, how beautiful that is. Right? So that is at least part of the meaning of the word Brahmanandam. We'll get into that more next time. Okay, again, today let's take a look at Adi Shankaracharya in a little bit more detail. Adi Shankaracharya ji has written Bhaja Govindam Stotram, and this is 36 verses. Bhaja Govindam Stotra is so interesting that there are many verses, but I will just speak one of them here. Ke punarapi jananam punarapi maranam punarapi janani jathare shayanam iha sansare bahudustare kripaya pare pahi murari bhaja govindam bhaja govindam bhaja govindam mudamate. So what does that verse mean? And I'll put that in the screen some other time. He's saying that worship God, worship Govinda. Don't waste time, because punarapi jananam punarapi maranam punarapi janani jathare shayanam, that the Jivatma goes back again into the womb of the mother, again and again. The transmigration cycle continues, and this has been talked about by all of the acharyas and all the avtaras. Everybody has talked about this in our what we call Hindu tradition. And is this something that they just made up? They had some dream one day and they made it up? It's not like that. This is a realization. They could see the cycle. So the cycle of transmigration is known to the great rishis because of their realization that this is what happens. So Adi Shankaracharya ji has written that beautiful verse, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jathare Shayanam. Jathare Shayanam, the Jivatma goes back into the womb of the mother. Iha Sansare, Bahudustare, again trapped in the vortex of the Sansar. Iha Sansare, Bahudustare, Krupaya Pari, Pahi Murari. With so much, by the grace of God, one comes out of this unbelievable transmigration cycle. It's a very big thing. See, when we are trying to do satsang, it's not like some entertainment or we're just trying to do something just for some diversion. That's okay. Some meditation and diversion, all that is different matter. That's all right. But this is actually it's at a level which we don't realize, in general. But the fact is, satsang has so much power, bhakti, sadhana, study of scriptures, that our consciousness uplifts, and the goal is to get out of that cycle of transmigration, rebirth. So that's what Adi Shankaracharya ji has taught in the Bhaja Govindam Stotram. It's 36 verses only. Very, very potent, very famous also throughout the Sanatana Dharma. And this thing about stopping the cycle of rebirth, this has been also the mission of Sajanand Swami, who is known as Swaminarayan. He says, I came for this purpose only. I want to show people how to get out of these things. So every Acharya has shown their own way, and particularly Bhagavad Gita talks about that. And of course, there's also something called Ram Gita. Ram Gita is there between between Bhagwan Ram and Lakshman. So that is called Shri Ram Gita. That also talks about this. So these are all great scriptures are there. All right, so let's continue from here. Okay, so now we shall continue with the Ashtottara Namavali of Bhagwan Shiv. Again, before we get into that, one thing to keep in mind, that the Shiva Swarupa is a completely compassionate and loving form. Even though the Rudra is the fierce form of Shiva, the absolute compassion is Karuna Sindhu. So there's a constant flowing of grace. And we can experience that as we reach that Brahmanandam state. There's a constant flow of grace and love, which is continuously flowing. And then, of course, you can see that the Gangaji is coming from the top of the head. So Of course, the river Ganga, that's there obviously, but there is also the flow of energy, the flow of gyan, flow of wisdom that flows outward, and then also flows inward. So it's like that. A lot of beautiful symbolism, but it's not just symbolism. There's also some spiritual dimension like that. Okay, so we will now move into the 108 names of Bhagavan Shiv. Please speak Om Namah Shivaya or Namah Shivaya between the names, or you can just repeat the name if you can repeat it in Sanskrit. Here we go.